Welcome back to the Rugby Paper podcast, where as we look ahead to round 3 of the Six Nations, a dark cloud hangs over Welsh rugby. Question marks surround Wales versus England as allegations and threats of player strikes mar the build-up. To discuss all this, we have the most fitting of guests joining me and the full house of columnists in the form of one of the all-time greats of Welsh rugby, Jonathan Davies. No Six Nations rugby this past weekend, but a cracking round 3 to preview today, and obviously a certain elephant in the room regarding Welsh rugby that we will address. Nick Kane returns from his 1-week hiatus. How are you, Nick?
I'm very well, thank you, Ollie.
I'm not sure if you watched last week's episode, but a certain Chris Hewitt was insulting your predictions at will while you weren't here, which was enjoyable to sit in on. And today we're joined by none other than Welsh rugby legend Jonathan Davies. How are things, Jonathan?
Morning, yeah, all good, thanks. All good. Yes, not bad, considering the state Welsh rugby's in, but not in that, so that's a relief.
Well, let's jump straight into it then. We deliberately didn't really discuss Wales last week, knowing you'd be with us this week.
Okay.
I'm not going to reflect on the rugby side of things yet. We'll save all that for the end. Let's reflect on the off-field stuff. So a strike threat by the players, potentially 70 players out of contract at the end of this year, allegations of a toxic environment in the documentary that led to Welsh Rugby CEO Steve Phillips's resignation. I know you've spoken about your 40 years in rugby and this feeling like as defining a moment as ever, but just elaborate on that a little bit.
I think it's always been issues, with the game, and I think they haven't really grasped professionalism since it's come in '95. So, but this, the off-field allegations and the lack of planning. I think they should have some kind of plan. I don't think there's any plan, and that's the worrying thing. And looking from the outside in, you don't know what's happening, in there. But now that all these allegations have come out, I know. But the thing I get looking from the outside, and I've been commentating on it, for a long time, the lack of trust between the regions and the union, and really the lack of trust between the regions to each other. Now that's there's never been trust there and harmony there, and so the players, I think, they saw the opportunity, and England is a big game, the big the money maker. So they decided, right, this is our opportunity, because I can see where the players are coming from. They've got a long time to do this, and you don't know where you're going to be in May if you're out the contract. And I think it highlighted the fact. I think it was Dixon. I think Jack Dixon got injured on Saturday for Dragons, and he's out of contract. So how can you imagine how he feels this morning when he's injured? He doesn't know how long his injury is going to be. He doesn't know where he's going to be in May, so you can understand, how the players feel, and I just think it's an opportunity now for total reform. I think there's, maybe you need a very strong CEO running the union, and then you need a rugby director, kind of running the rugby, because the age group teams haven't got full-time coaches, so that we're failing the youngsters. They're volunteers, obviously, but I think also that the regions can look at themselves, because I think that the players are overpaid, and I think that's across the board. This year of salaries for some of these players, and you can see, it's not sustainable. So I think the players and the regions have to look at it and go, okay, we can't afford to pay the players at the salaries that we are playing. Okay, the better ones maybe, but this should have been done a long time ago. But no, maybe it's an opportunity for them to have a total reform, with the union on the rugby side and the business side.
Talk about the sort of dichotomy between proaction and reaction in terms of rugby boards in general, and I know the Welsh Rugby Union. Sorry,
I think the Welsh Union. I think if they saw this coming, if someone like Amanda Blanc saw it from the inside, and surely they should have listened to her first of all, and then a massive red flag if she just decides to walk away. A person of that caliber to walk away from an union when they're trying to diversify the board and everything. It's just that, to me, that was such a red flag. And then they must have seen something before that. And then all of a sudden, they've reacted to a television program. So it's, if it was in there, someone should have been strong enough to say, right, this is not happening. We need to address it. But then it took a television program to highlight it and to address it, which I can't understand it if anyone could see this happening in there. Just every environment that I've been in, you create that culture, and I think even in the business sense, every business I've worked, if something is rotten, you sort it out, and you sort it out. Then you can't let things fester, because it's only going to get worse, and it's going to appear somewhere down the line. So I just couldn't believe when the program came out that no one had said something before this. And I think with the regions now, it's sure there has to be some kind of business plan where there's security for the regions to be able to work and plan on getting players. But the Team Wales, I think, is kind of hidden a lot of cracks.
What's your view on the regional situation? We had the late great Eddie Butler on back in, it must have been June, I think, and he suggested, and this certainly stoked up a fuss in the Welsh press, of cutting the regions in half to, I think he suggested north and south or east and west.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Well, as you can imagine now, right, Ollie, everyone on Twitter are throwing all kinds of proposals, but unless you're looking from the inside out, you can't really say. They've just got to be honest, and say, right, we can't afford this amount of money. We can't afford to carry 4 sides. So the reason they came down to the 4 regions was because economically they couldn't sustain the old first rugby division. So all of the old clubs, your Cardiffs, your Swanseas, your Nice, St Netlys, and Pontypridd, they had to say, "Oh, we haven't got enough money in the professional world, so we got to." So that's where the regions came from. We did, with Moffat, I think it was. So we need to look at it. They need to say, right, do we have the money? If not, we've got to cut the regions, and only they know that. So, but I think surely we can have 4 sides, but because if we cut it down again, I suppose the sides would get strengthened. But I'm not really sure. I'm not sure where I stand on that. I think it's if we budgeted well, I think there's enough good players in Wales to do that, and they can look at the 60 cap rule. They can look at marquee players. The benefactors maybe can, buy the marquee players, maybe get a forward and a back, I think. But it all depends on how they're going to structure it and plan it going forward now, because this is the opportunity for them. And I do think the regions know themselves that they've overspent on players. I think a lot of the players are, overpaid. And I think the regions created that.
Jonathan, do you think the players themselves are realistic enough to acknowledge that overall they're being overpaid? Because that would seem to be quite a big stumbling block if you're trying to move this forward.
I think it is. I think it is. But I do think they'll have to realise for the longevity of their careers, maybe, because I think a lot of them will say, "Oh no, I'm not taking a pay cut," but I don't think they get that much money anywhere else. But your agents are going to say, "Yes, you are." The players are going to say, "Yes, you are." Obviously, so that's a massive stumbling block. But realistically, I think that the players should. A lot of players would know that they might be massively overpaid, but it's difficult now, because you live your life on your salary, don't you? So your mortgages and your lifestyle is geared around your salary. So I'm thinking, do they wait till these players' salaries now come to an end and then they renegotiate and realize that maybe they've got to drop them a little bit? Is it the same in England? Are England going to drop the salaries?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they will have to.
Yeah.
I mean, the game, if you look at what's happened with the sort of those 2 clubs going into administration, Worcester and Worcester, other clubs on the brink of administration, apparently, that is one of the biggest issues that English rugby faces as well. But I think I sort of don't know what you feel, but I just feel that we're getting on for 30 years into professionalism now, and the mismanagement of the sport it's mind-boggling, really, when you look at, I mean, wage negotiations are one thing, and if you want to play hardball on wage negotiations, that's one thing, but to leave people in a total contractual limbo land, a wasteland, it's just madness.
It is. I think I'm 100% with the players of where they are. There's no way you can live your life not knowing where you're going to be in May. you know, because your priority are your family. You know, and when we, you know, we were amateurs, so, you know, we just played and didn't get anything for it, right? So these boys, it's their livelihood, and you tend to forget that sometimes. Oh, yeah, you know, but then you get another job. A lot of them aren't qualified to do anything else. So, you know, it is mind-boggling, as you say, to come to this situation where these players don't know where they're going to be in May. I don't know where the money's coming from. So, but it's just a plan. Why haven't they got a business plan? Why haven't they got it with the regions? It should be like 5-6 year business plans, you know. But yeah, I just can't believe it that we've got to this situation. I do feel for the players. I do, you know, I feel for the regions. But why couldn't they? Why couldn't they just have some kind of plan? You know, it's and if they'd have said, look, everyone's getting paid too much, or you're wasting your money. But again, there's a lack of trust or the lack of control from the union overseeing the regions. You know, so that, you know, if you, even on the playing side of it, you know, if Gatland now is the director of rugby in the next 5 years, because I'm not sure what his contract is, does he have any power to influence any of the regions? I don't think he has. So what's the point of him being there?
Well, he's against the 60 cap rule, and he can't get that scrapped.
I think they've said that they are going to scrap it.
Yeah, I think.
It's looking like it will be scrapped. Thank the Lord. But
I
mean, Warren's been against that for, you know, a long time, because I mean, obviously it impacts on his selection. I mean, you know, that's the pointy end of it from his perspective, I suppose.
You can see why they brought it in. You know, they wanted the Welsh players to play in Wales, right? And he wanted control then, so he could bring the players. But it hasn't really worked, because all those players on contract a contract with the union, they don't play many games, so they're not an asset to the region.
It's all gone though. That notion of everyone playing. I mean, that's even the Kiwis have given up on that. They allow everyone to push off to Japan for 2 full years between World Cups. And they're basically saying to them, so on the one hand, the front they present to the world is, oh, well, you're not going to be picked for the All Blacks if you're not playing in New Zealand. On the other hand, they say, push off to Japan, fill your boots for 2 years, and just come back when we need you to be available. Yeah, I mean, that's obvious. Australia shift and move around this stuff. South Africa gave up on South Africans playing in South Africa a long, long time ago. I think it's unsustainable now. The players will go where the money is.
I totally agree. And that's what I'm thinking now. We're in this, you know, dire situation, but this is an opportunity to actually sort everything out. You know, everything, you know, the 60 cap rule, you know, the money, the regions, you know, everything can start fresh if they can. And I think, as Nick said, the bigger problem now is getting the players to maybe understand that it's not sustainable with the salary some of them are on.
Do you not think, though, Jonathan, it's bigger than Wales in a way? I mean, the whole focus is on Wales, and it's a really uncomfortable spotlight. Yeah. I mean, everything's coming in on Wales. It's like the rugby spotlight is doing to Wales what you lot used to do to England on the field when you were playing in the 80s. You know, I mean, it's almost an unequal battle. But I think the problems that we're talking about go far, far wider than Wales. Rugby internationally has never been on the same page since the day professionalism was declared, or the open game was declared. Everyone did something different. The political wars behind it and the economic battles behind it have now been going on, as Nick says, for 30 years plus. Yeah. And it's unless you have some really, really strong, enlightened leadership from people who know what they're doing and aren't just in it to fly business class from one game to the next, I don't see where the game goes. I think it's a real struggle at the moment to see its way forward, because in a sense, nothing's changed apart from a few pigeons have come home to roost. Nothing's changed since the madnesses of 95 and 96.
It's Leicester in trouble at the moment. Did I read something yesterday?
Well, they've got cash flow problems, but I don't think they're in trouble. But they lost 2 home matches in a row because of Worcester and Wasps pulling out. That was the best part of £1 million in cash flow. And they were having a relaunch of the membership and that. But yeah, they've had to have a £13 million injection from 2 of their wealthy board members to settle everything down. And
if that's, you know, if Leicester, they're, you know, such a big club and the great as a stadium, and I thought it's always full. They got good sponsors everywhere. If someone of that stature struggling financially, cash flow wise. That's it's a huge problem, and they're just hiding behind it. You look at Worcester. I looked at I nearly went to work for Cecil. He asked me to be player coach when I was finished, and I just didn't fancy it at the time because I wanted to get away from rugby for a bit. But the money that he put in and the ground and everything, and for them to go and the history that Wasps have, you're thinking, well, if they can go, anyone can go,
Yeah.
But Bath, who do have a lot of money comparatively, feel that they're just able to push really hard to bump the salary cap in England back up. I mean, crikey, who comes up with these ideas? But they can just on a whim go and sign Finn Russell. He won't come cheap. That's for sure. And as for Leicester's cash flow problems, they go back years. You ever see Dean Richards buy a pint? He was a human cash flow problem.
It is sad, we're talking about this now, and it is sad. And as you said, Wales are at the front of it, unfortunately, because the strike and the big England game and the allegations. So it's an opportunity, I think, to really sort everything out now. As you said, they haven't really grasped professionalism since the game went pro. So who knows what's going to happen? So I think it's a real, because if the England game doesn't go ahead, to the regions, that's the money coming out of the regions' pocket again, I suppose.
But I think that the implications of the England game not going ahead it's massive, because I would imagine it's the best part of 7 or 8 million out of the WRU's budget.
More
but
than that,
think of the ramifications further than that. If a game is either cancelled or postponed, and it's possible that Wales could forfeit their participation in the rest of the championship. All of these, if you look at the ramifications of it, if you can't compete because of whatever reason, then you're breaking the contractual rules, broadcast rules, all manner of things. So the ramifications are massive.
It would certainly concentrate a few minds, wouldn't it?
Certainly would.
I mean, actually, it could be a real catalyst and accelerant towards the kind of proper accounting of where rugby stands around the world and what it's trying to achieve and the way forward, so to speak. It would certainly concentrate some minds on that. I'm sure it won't happen because Wales will have 15 blokes to put on the field against England anyway. Apparently Ian and Nigel Walker are on the wings.
Jiffy's looking pretty sharp.
And you're laughing, Jiffy, but I understand.
There's no way.
Does anyone think the game won't go ahead?
No, it'll go ahead because the ramifications are too serious. I remember 2000, England were going on strike before the Argentina match.
Yeah.
And it was pretty serious. It sort of got, I'm not ever quite sure what it was about, but they were like, Jono was on the warpath. And they lined up a team from the championship. They were going to pick a team from the championship if the players didn't back down. You just have to get 15 on the park and fulfill your contractual obligation.
That would be laughable, wouldn't it? Then
it would, yeah, but it would save them a lot of legal expenses.
It was overmatch fees, as I recall, and it was a very, very uncomfortable situation for a while, and Clive Woodward, who was manager stroke coach at the time, found it extremely uncomfortable, and he was exceptionally angry about it. But of course they could have done it. They could have threatened to strike before they played the Wallabies, but didn't. They picked the Argentina game instead, and it was a bad look because when the talks broke down, they all drove away from Penny Hill Park, which is a bit like Sandringham, in their pretty flash cars, moaning about money. And of course, they're playing a side who was strictly amateur at the time.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty poor look. So, as usually in rugby, the PR side of it wasn't quite handled as well as it might have been.
Yeah, I think the ramifications are too large for them not to go ahead. But I think the threat is there, or you're asking, I think they are. It's a serious threat because they've all come together, and it's a livelihood of some of the players. So surely they can sort something out before. Well, hopefully Wednesday's a deadline day, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it just shows what kind of position the game is in Wales, and the lack of harmony between regions and the union, and it's come to the head, and it's very sad, very sad.
So can
and
I
the
ask
great
you?
mystery about all of this is that throughout all the mismanagement of Welsh rugby in the last 10, 15 years is their extraordinary record in the Six Nations, punching well above their weight with Grand Slams and championships. And it's almost masked everything that's been going wrong because Wales has been so successful.
That's what's happened, Brendan. That's what's happened. And everyone said, oh, yeah, Wales are going well. Wales are going well. But ultimately, again, there's a lack of depth in Wales. And I've said this for a long, long time. There's a lack of depth. So, we failed the youngsters by not giving them the correct coaching, and when they come up to the region, they're set up. They're not good enough, and then maybe they're thrust into it when the internationals are on, and it's not good development for the players. So you can see the regions have been really poor, and that's been no one's coming to watch them. There's no connection to the supporters. A lot of the supporters, because so it has definitely masked what's beneath it.
I mean, this would have come to as a shock to Warren, won't it? Because in his previous incarnation as coach there, one of the things he traded on, I'm not saying he did deliberately, but one of the things he was able to manipulate to his advantage was this great team spirit around the international camp, because it was full of people who weren't getting any great satisfaction out of regional rugby, and they were all relieved to be there. And that was a really tight group of players, really tight. And to see it all splatter away like this in his first 3 games is interesting. It'll be a big test of how he handles it, actually, I think.
Well, you've got England home. That's a tough game. And you've got 2 away games. The Italians will be tough. They're playing a lot better this year, and they're really, improved at home anyway. And then you've got France away. So, it's not going to get any easier.
No. Jiffy, can I ask you, so you said that you're 100% with the players. Warren Gatland has come out and said something similar, but that he's not supporting the players striking this week. If you were Warren Gatland, would you have come out and said something like that?
Maybe he's in a difficult position, isn't he? He works for the WRU. He's paid for the WRU. So I think he's back to players. I think he's saying, I hope there's not a strike. If he'd have said, I hope it's all sorted out before the game on Saturday, maybe, but because the press are going to jump on every comment that he makes. So it's maybe, he regrets saying that, maybe. But he's in a very difficult position, I suppose. But
he's turned into Keir Starmer, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's turned into Keir Starmer. He's basically saying, I support the cause, but I don't support the strike.
Yeah,
have you ever seen Warren and Keir Starmer in the same room?
Yeah, I know.
But in a way, he's actually being honest. I mean, the reality is that he probably does support the players' position, that they've been left in a contractual limbo. But he knows very well that if the game doesn't go ahead for whatever reason, he could end up having to coach a team of not even semi-pros, perhaps, or whatever, and it would be a disaster for the union as well, and for the game in Wales.
You're dead right. You're dead right. He's a player-driven coach, if ever there was one. Yeah. Absolutely, he's the opposite of the dictator coach.
Yeah,
he's much more of a consensus guy, and he's always been really pro the players. I think he defends the players to the hilt. Actually, that's always been my impression of him, and I'm sure that's the case at the moment.
I think the top players, they'll be okay because they can walk into another contract. They can go abroad, they can go anywhere they want. It's the kind of journeymen, kind of squad players that have the issue, because they, are they good enough to go elsewhere? Who knows? Are they going to get paid the same amount of money they're getting paid at the moment? Who knows? I doubt it. So that's where the problem is, and I find it, the players they've all had to back each other. And then Warren's come in. He says, "Look, I'm not I don't want the game not to go ahead, but I understand the player situation. That's what he's generally saying. He totally understands the player's situation, and unfortunately, the threat of the game is the only thing they can do to get this kind of thing sorted, I think.
I do think it's a good idea. One of the other demands, as I understand it, is to have a players rep on the professional game board. I don't see a problem with that.
No, me.
Because A, they have every right to be on the professional game board because they are major stakeholders, i.e. they're the people who are playing the game. But also, you head this kind of crisis point, you can head it off at the pass if they're fully informed. One of their complaints is they've not been informed at all about what the hell is going on about their own personal circumstances. Which is
again, that's the lack of trust between the union and the regions. You know, they just, for some reason, they've been like this since I can remember. But I don't understand why there hasn't been a plan or, you know, total transparency or a business plan to run the business.
If you had Alan Wynne sitting there on the professional game board, I know he can be a bit random at times, but he's a bright bloke and he knows how many beans make five. If a player of his stature is there representing the players in the major discussion body on the Welsh Rugby Union, I don't understand what's not to like.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong. I don't understand what's wrong with that. You know, and that should have happened when the game went professional. So you can have a player's perspective of, you know, on the board. But that's another thing. I think they need to get a board to run the professional game, because I do believe that the non-execs, when these allegations came out, that they stepped in to really kind of steady the ship and just try and make the big decisions at that particular time. So yeah, I just think that it needs a professional board to run the game in Wales. You know, and then give guarantees to the amateur game and the grassroots. But you know, these. You think there's a lot of common sense. Just should be, you know, had here, but it doesn't seem to happen. And yeah, it's just, this is where we're at again.
Chris, it was interesting that you made the comparison with the 2000 strike, and I'm ashamed to say that I was 1 year old when that happened, so I don't really remember the public response to it. But I have seen, I think it's mentioned in Building Jerusalem, so I have seen a lot about it. But one thing it didn't really show was whether the public were actually sympathetic to the players, because I think the public are very sympathetic here, but I wondered how that compared to 2000.
I think they probably were, actually, because I'm not sure that the rugby bloke in the street has much time for rugby officialdom. I mean, they feel a far greater connection to the players, and it wasn't as though, I mean, it was only half a joke about people driving away in their flash cars from something that looked like Sandringham, and they're actually going to play against an amateur team or not play against an amateur team, all that business. You know, if either of the two teams had a problem at that point, it probably wasn't England, it was the Pumas. But that's a sort of aside. People. Some of the ringleaders or the senior figures at the players' end of that dispute, people like Martin Johnson, the rugby guy in the street, the rugby man and woman in the street, had an implicit trust in Martin, somebody like Martin, far more than they had in the suits of the Rugby Football Union. Yeah. So if you want a popular vote to say who's right on this issue, Martin Johnson or Francis Barron, the chief executive, I think there's probably only one winner. Yeah. I mean, RFU officialdom would have had its supporters, but if you're just talking about pure numbers and the people who were interested in rugby without having any official role in it, then I think the players would.
But it was a very different dispute, because it was a dispute about England match fees.
Yeah.
Whereas this is about people's total careers. So
it's far more
different by degree.
Yeah.
This is fundamental.
I think the people are sympathetic of the players, and I think, you know, once they, and maybe if they knew some of the wages that the players are on and how the regions maybe mismanaged it, they wouldn't be as sympathetic. But as Nick said, this is a situation which should never have happened, and that is purely, you know, down to the WIU. Unfortunately, they should have said, "Look, we can't. How are we in this position where, you know, it's a couple of months' time and players aren't contracted?" You know, that's the breakdown in communication, whichever way it's come from, the regions or the union. for the interest of the players, the regions and the union should have settled this. It's a disgrace that it's got to this stage, and the players have had to come and say, right, England, Wales, biggest money earner, we're striking. And you could see the opportunity. They went, right, that's enough of this, but there wasn't an opportunity for us. Yeah, they maybe not looked it through, and if it doesn't go ahead, there's so many ramifications. But it's highlighted the problem that they wanted to get sorted a long way back, and that's the issue here.
So, if the players were not to strike, so it seemed to me that there were three main points, and this is the last thing I'll flag on this before we move on, unless anyone has anything else to say. But it seemed to me, or Wales Rugby Online or Wales Online is saying that the 60 cap limit has to be scrapped, the WRPA has to be on the Professional Rugby Board, and the 20% performance bonus is to be scrapped. Those are the three main points. Jiffy, is that how you understand it as well?
Yeah, I think so, but I haven't really took much notice of it, because I'm thinking, right, let them sort it out, because I think you have to be involved to understand what are the issues on both sides. I think that's it. So I think to get the game ahead, they got to sort the differences out so the players are happy, and then maybe sort a lot of other things out after the Six Nations. I think that has to be this. Like I said before, it's a total opportunity for complete reform. It's like a kickstart where, right, how can we do it? How can we move on together? How can we strengthen the regions? And then all of a sudden, then move forward. And I think trust is a big thing, but even some kind of plan, any plan is better than what's happening at the moment.
Let's leave that there. And it sounds like total reform is what's needed. So, well, one, let's hope for that, and two, let's hope for something of a game this weekend. We'll get to previewing that a little bit later. Let's put some smiles back on some faces with Jonathan Davies's Random Rugby 15. I know we're a little bit tight for time, so let's put the quick in quick fire for this. But Jiffy, if you're ready, we'll get going with those.
Come on then.
Nickname.
Obviously, Jiffy.
What's your nickname, Jiffy?
Yeah, exactly. That might be the only time everyone has known the answer to that question before it's been asked. Best rugby memory?
I think just first cap, playing for Wales, because I hadn't played at any level for Wales, so to get that was was special.
Most embarrassing rugby memory?
I kicked the ball playing in Bermuda Classic. I fly hacked the ball into touch, and I think whether he's the Bermudan Prime Minister or Premier, I don't know what his title was. I caught him flush in the face, and they had to look after him for a bit, and then I bumped into him on the street a couple of days after. So yeah,
that's really good. Was it a good strike? The fly hack?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, well, just cleared it into touch. That's all it was. Got it before the winger, just fly hacked it. And the other one is like when we played for England for Wales, we didn't go off the pitch for 10 minutes, did we? So you have a circle in the middle of the pitch for a minute, and I was kneeling down, calling H in the middle, and the boys decided to walk away. So it was a bit embarrassing, just kneeling at Cardiff Arms Park doing your business, and then all the players just walk away from you. So
pre-game tune.
It's the real thing by U2.
Nice. Post-game meal.
Post-game?
Yeah, after a game.
Oh, hey, depends where we were. With Neath there was sausage and chips, bean sausage and chips, and same old thing, no nutritionists around in those days, so it depends whatever the club wanted to put on the table for you. When I was pre-match was an omelette. I was having an omelette before the match, but then after the match, who knows? Whatever they put in front of you.
Best player you've played against?
Well, it's a tough one. This, I think. So I've been very fortunate, to play against a lot of the greats, and I think as a forward, maybe Michael Jones, maybe as a forward, and then as a back, maybe Campese.
Nice. Best player you've played with?
Oh, I think that's another tough one. I think Terry Holmes takes some beating.
Favorite player right now?
Oh God. Oh, DuPont.
Nice. Rugby idol.
Growing up, it was, you had so many in the 70s, but for me, it was Gerald Davies. But and Benny to a degree, because I used to watch Benny play, every Saturday and every Wednesday in Stradey Park. So I remember Gerald Davies, flying down. I remember a photo of him with his collar up and everything, with the ball in his hand. So yeah, Gerald and Benny.
Favorite stadium?
Oh, never played in the Millennium Stadium or Principality. Cardiff Arms Park is special, but maybe Parc de France.
Favorite gym exercise?
Gym exercise. Yeah. The favorite machine, they say, the vending machine. I don't know. Maybe I do like the watt bike now.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Didn't have them back in
No,
your day.
No. A bit of, I didn't do any weights when I played for Wales. Only 11.5 stone. So I was about, I just, I used to do cleans, a bit of cleans.
Nice. Occupation if rugby didn't exist?
Oh, God. I think I'd have been in sales, I think. I was a contracts manager for an industrial painting company. So, yeah, maybe that.
Nice. Superstitions?
I didn't have any.
Okay. Rugby law you would change?
I'd definitely bring back rucking.
Get rid of,
when I see all those guys in the jackal position, I'm like, oh God, anything could happen here. It's a very dangerous position to be in. So and everyone's kind of scared of rucking, but rucking, it's, if you do it properly, I think it's a lot safer than the current laws.
I think Chris Hewitt might agree with you there. His expression is always so inscrutable.
It's just music to my ears. It's been so many of rugby's on-field problems stem directly from the fact that it's no longer a numbers game around the ball.
No.
It's decreased the space. It's got people stood out in the threes that you don't want to see out there, and it's changed rugby massively. Leaving aside the obvious medical and physical sort of disaster area, which is the jackal position, which is a shocker. And I do not understand for the life of me how it's still in the game. I do not. Lastly,
best thing about working in rugby?
I've said this from day one. I just think it's the people. I've made friends for life. And you only gotta, you don't see them for years, and straight away you straight into it as if you haven't left their side. So from the junior rugby clubs of Trimsaran, to the Welsh team and the journalists, and I played in an era where we sat down and had long interviews with the journalists, and when we were on tour, we got to know them and trusted them, and it was just a delight to be around those kind of people, and you trusted each other. So and if you had any issues or any problems, you could go to someone within that environment, to chat about it. So I think the people pre-social media. But idiots on there now. I'm like, oh God, there you go.
Nice little touch. All right, awesome stuff. Thanks for doing that, Jonathan. And
that's fine.
That most embarrassing rugby memory is definitely one of the better ones we've had. Not many people can say they've hit the Bermuda Premier in the face of the rugby
back
ball.
To Bermuda, though, I suspect.
You should have been watching the game anyway.
How many rugby people would have loved to knock out a head of state down the years? That's absolutely fantastic.
I know. Yeah, he was close to the pitch.
Oh dear. Right. Now let's look ahead to Wales, England, presuming it does happen properly. Everyone submitted their predictions. We'll get to those in a second. I actually want to look at England first, and look at one of the players who definitely won't be there this weekend, and that's Manu Tuilagi. Brendan, I think we're all in agreement that was as red as a red card gets.
Yeah, that was. He did one, didn't he? And it was a legal one, and he got the taste for it. He went back for the big fend about a second later, and it was out of order given the current regulations. So no, that was a red. That'll be a month. Well, it'll be the normal 6 weeks down to 4, and then a week's tackle school, or even though it wasn't a tackle. So it'll be a 3-week ban, and he's out of the Six Nations. Now, I don't think he was going to play. He certainly wasn't going to start. I think England are inclined to go with the guys who started last time, Ollie Lawrence and Henry Slade. But, you know, it's about time England found out, you know, whether they can actually function without the potential of Manu playing. He's been hanging around for 5 or 6 years with the occasional sort of cameo appearance. England this is the opportunity to put this to one side. We're going to play the entire tournament without Manu even in the background, and let's see if we can make this back division work, because it hasn't worked properly for a long time, the England back division.
Now, that, you know, you tend to know there's, you know, people say, even now, what's a high tackle, what's an illegal tackle, what's an illegal tackle, before all these kind of changes, and everyone knows what a high tackle is. You just got to, you know, referee them properly. If you referee the laws properly, and that was a forearm smash. So
yeah,
you know, that would have been a sending off in our day. So it was a stupid thing to do. Everyone's like, you know, watching everything these days. So he had to go, unfortunately. So,
he was pumped up. He knew he had to do a big performance because he's lost ground with England. He was pumped up and he looks fit, but that was a really, really silly thing to do.
Yeah.
Would it be a sending off in rugby league?
Sorry?
Would it have been a sending off in rugby league?
And even in rugby league, I think it was a sending off.
Okay,
maybe a yellow card, maybe, I'm not sure, but I think a red card in league, because you know it was so clear. You know, it was no mitigation whatsoever. So but I think going back to the England 10-12 axis, you just got to pick Marcus Smith, or you got to pick Owen Farrell. That's the first thing, and then you got to work who's going to be outside him, because I don't think Faz likes playing at 12. He looks a little bit disinterested sometimes, because you know he wants to play 10. So they've got to make a call and decide who's going to play 10 and 12 for England going forward. You know, with the World Cup coming up now, and Lawrence played okay last week, but it'll be a bigger test. You know, this week.
Do you think George Ford will confuse the issue?
They've got to pick a 10, whether it's Ford, Farrell, or Smith. That's it. You know, make a call, pick one or the other. Then you can't pick the other ones in the centre. You can't pick Faz in the centre. I think that's the key. Make a call at 10, stick to it, and then you play the 12 and 13 outside of them. That's the call for me. You're getting paid lots of money. You've got to make the brave calls.
Part of me worries with that, Chris, and I was going to obviously bring up the George Ford issue, is that the England blueprint ever since 2016 has been a playmaker at 10 and 12, and Ford coming back in may mean an acceptance of Smith and Fowle not necessarily working, but looking to rekindle the Ford and Fowle that worked so well in 2019. I don't know if you agree, or that's something you're worried about as well.
I think Lawrence could tick a lot of boxes for England, actually, if he continues his development in, you know, only started promisingly. It's very, very early days for him, but he looks as though he has a bit to his game. You know, he's more than the straight, you know, one up, get us over the gain line type. I mean, he can do some other things, and I think Slade has the potential to be really important. I mean, they do have a bunch of options there. To my mind, George Ford's the best 10 in England.
Yeah.
But he brings with him a defensive fragility, which some coaches are very, very wary of. But there again, so does Marcus Smith in a sense. I mean, he's not exactly Andre Pollard himself, is he?
You know, gets me up, Chris. Sorry to butt in. I don't understand why haven't these countries developed a 12? I remember John Kerwin telling me, if Manon was told, if you don't, you know, learn yourself to pass and to kick, you won't be playing in your blacks. Right? So why can't there be? You look at all these clubs and they're all professional. Why can't they play left and right? So if you want to put a move on, why just can't you put Henry Slade at 12? If you want to take the ball up, give it to Ollie or Lawrence, and then he can take it up. I don't understand why they're so rigid to 12 and 13. You can swap over at different positions. Use his left foot when it's needed, you know, chuck him and miss one, or put him in the centre, put him on the other side of the scrum. So Slade, because he's got number 13 on his back, he hasn't got to play outside centre. And I don't understand the thinking between any of the coaches to say, right, well, let's swap them around and use those players' abilities when we need them.
Funnily enough, you mentioned that before the 2015 World Cup. That's exactly what Lancaster did when they fast-tracked Burgess into the side. So in the World Cup warm-ups, he played alongside Slade, certainly in the first game against France. Yeah. England scored some bloody good tries, actually, in a good performance. And on defensive ball, Burgess was at 12.
Yeah.
And whenever they wanted to do something with the ball, rather than just try and run over someone, Slade was the man. He was first receiver, stroke second receiver. So it has sort of been dibbled around with, but I completely agree with you. That seems to have gone out.
I just don't get it why they don't do it. It just baffles me. Baffles me, honestly, Lord.
I mean, the Ford Farrell combination came in, as I remember it, by default, as these things very often do, because Tuilagi was unfit. Jones would have gone with Tuilagi definitely at inside centre if he'd been fit from the outset. I think that, I mean, I agree. England are very rigid in terms of the way in which they think about this. I think Ford definitely does throw a spanner in the works in a sense, but competition's a good thing. It is very surprising that he's been brought in so quickly. It was a bad injury that he's had. He was out for a long time. I noticed that Brian O'Driscoll said recently, just over the weekend, he said, he couldn't understand him being brought back so soon when he's played so little rugby. I mean, he's hardly played.
Half an hour yesterday, and actually he wasn't cracking yesterday. He was on the pitch when they began to fade. Sorry, Saturday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Half an hour's rugby in 8 months.
Oh, it's a long way back. But to me, all things being equal, and if he's as fit as he can be, to me, he's the best 10 in the country. He's a game managing 10.
Yeah.
He's the best England have. I mean, he's the nearest thing. I once said to Stuart Barnes, he's the nearest thing I've seen to you, Barnesy, in style and just rugby nice and game management. But then that's not saying much because you ran around Stuart Barnes down at the Knoll one night, didn't you?
Couple of times.
Yeah. What, you came back and did it again, did you?
It is early days to bring him back in. Obviously, no team news as yet. One player that's also been ruled out is Ollie Hassel-Collins, which means that England will have someone else on the wing, presuming Max Malins keeps the other spot. Brendan, who would you go with? It seems to me to be a shootout between Henry Arundel and Anthony Watson.
That's a close one, isn't it? I mean, I want to see Arundel get full 80, but this is a must, not a must-win game for England, but it would be really nice for Borthwick to get this scalp. And Anthony Watson down in Cardiff, and it's going to be a bit mad down there, isn't it? There's a lot of emotion swirling around one way or another. You kind of want Anthony Watson for this one, I think, but I want to see Arundel get the full 80, sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Can I just add, by the way, the perennial number 12 debate? I got shot down more than once 12 months ago. There is a number 12 in England. It's Freddie Stewart. He's Jamie Roberts. He's the Barrett brother incarnate. He could become one of the best 12s in the world. It's just, do you want to sacrifice your best 15 to move him to 12? Is
definitely not
good enough?
Definitely
is
not.
15 good enough to come back and make good? But the solution is there, boys. If England want to be brave enough.
The lucky thing for you is you've got a lot of strength and depth in a lot of positions, and we're struggling to fill. Centres is a problem in Wales as well. 10, 12 axis or. But
you won't pick Nick Tompkins, Jiff.
What
has he done wrong?
I don't know. Just bigger. He's bigger. Is bigger the 10 moving forward. Who knows? Who knows?
Who's the 10 if bigger isn't?
Well, it was Anscombe, wasn't it? And but he'll be coming back. So Patchell hasn't played enough. Owen Williams, Owen Williams has been around, and all of a sudden he's playing with the Ospreys and he's back in the squad. So it's a tough call. I think Patchell, if he gets a run of games, could be the next number 10 for Wales. But he's got to have a run of games.
It's a struggle in Wales. I mean, you've never had any 10s down there, have you?
No, we haven't really.
Oh, Chris, so mean. Brendan, if you're pro Freddie Stewart at 12, what are your thoughts on George North at 12?
I think he's done all right, but I mean, the trouble is, I mean, Wales have been poor generally, and it's been mainly a defensive shift from him. And you know, it is a big change for a wing playing centre defensively, as Jiffy, I'm sure.
But by that I
And
mean,
that's
obviously, he's been playing at 13 for Wales.
yeah, which is the most difficult position of all.
You move
Defensively,
him into the Jamie Roberts 12 role.
that to me is the more obvious place for him to play if you're going to go that route for the big man. I'm a big Nick Tompkins fan, and I thought he brought something to Wales. You know, he's one of the PVAC success stories, if I want of a better word. And I don't know if I don't think there is an injury because he played very well again yesterday for Saracens. So I'd be pretty disappointed if he doesn't feature somewhere this week, Tompkins.
Yeah. But also, you know, I mean, you mentioned Arundel earlier on. The idea of seeing both Arundel and Louis Rees-Zammit on the pitch at the same time is mouth-watering. That you know, that could put a smile on the face of the England-Wales game that there at the moment.
Yeah. In a straight race, from what I saw on the Gloucester game at the weekend, in a straight race, there's only one winner there. Quick as Arundel is.
Arundel will be up after 50, and then Rees-Zammit would come through like sugar.
That is a freakish pace. He puts distance in the space of 10 yards, 15 tops. He puts massive difference between himself and the rest. Rees-Zammit. He's as quick as anything I've seen on a rugby field.
Presuming then, Jiffy, that Rees-Zammit will come back in now, you think? I know you lamented the lack of backline threat. I mean, there's one in a Wales 14 shirt right there.
But unfortunately, because the link, you know, I think we've, you know, we haven't looked like creating anything. So having players on the wing, you know, we got to get them the ball. That's the key thing. So, and you know, we've kicked a lot of possession away. We haven't got that connection between 10 and 12. We play a little bit too deep. Then we go through the phases. Dan Bigger drops back in the pocket and kicks. So, you know, we have to show some creativity against England and a connection between 10, 12 and 13. We haven't had it. You know, you watch Ireland play, you watch Scotland play, and they're doing plays. And that's all. If you're doing plays, you've just got to make the defence, you know, make a choice. But at the moment, we're not making defenders have to make a choice. We're looking very ponderous and flat. So that's you know, we haven't got a lot to go forward. You know, Ken Owens is carrying the ball on his own. So we need go forward, and then we need that creativity between 10 and 12 if the back three are going to have any influence on the game.
It's a problem at 10 though, isn't it? I mean, I really, believe me when I say I absolutely treasure Dan Bigger. I think as a beating heart player, somebody who is absolutely first out of the trenches. I mean, both when he was at Ospreys, him and Alan Wynne were carrying that club week after week after week after week. He's done fantastic stuff for Wales, but he is not a creator in the sense of some of the Welsh outside halves, yourself included, of the past, and he's not a creator in the sense that Finn Russell or Jonathan Sexton is a play creator. He's not that kind of 10, is he?
I think he created a lot. He created more with Northampton. They played a different style of game, and they were flatter. So you know, he just because
Chris Boyd was good for him.
Yeah,
Chris Boyd was good for him.
He had Jamie Roberts on his outside and Jonathan Davies. You know, I think they're the biggest backline Wales have ever had. So you know, you could use them a lot, and he did use them a lot. And then he went after certain phases. So. Yeah, that's an issue now. And again, if you drop him, it's a big call to drop Dan because he is such a big character in that squad. So, but hey, you know, if you've got style, you got to change your style, and you know, everyone's had it. You know, time catches up with everyone.
Would you go with Dan and a combination of Nick Tompkins and George North just for the, I suppose the linkage, they have played together?
I think he looks threatening. Tompkins does with the ball in hand. Hawkins is a nice footballer, but he hasn't played a lot of games, and I think he needs to develop a little bit more. But I think that's the safe bet, I suppose. That is the safe bet in the 10, 12, 13 positions. And then let's see what happens then. At the moment, I think that game, if England play the same, with a kick in so much in the opposition 22, if it comes off, it's brilliant, But if they don't go through the phases, the the game's going to be a very, very slow set piece and everything, and that might favour Wales.
Well, you've just sort of alluded to what your prediction for the weekend is. Despite the tone of the narrative, you've gone for a Wales win, Jiffy. Now, I was trying to conjure up the narrative that you would have come up with for that to have happened. And the narrative I've got in my head is something similar to what Brian Moore said, of the players actually coming together at a time when, they are really naturally brought together by their own struggle. Is that the sort of vision you have for this weekend?
I think with Wales losing, 2 games, you didn't need any, galvanising to play it in England. You've all been there. The atmosphere. It's a 5 o'clock kickoff, right? The build-up will be. Hopefully, it'll get better once it's all sorted. So you wouldn't need any more motivation than England coming to Cardiff. But again, with what's happened, it would galvanise you, because the only place you can forget all your troubles is on the park. But I just felt that this was a game that, with England, with Borthwick, not sure what style they want to play, not sure which players they want to pick in the combinations that come into Cardiff, and the style of rugby that they played against Italy would suit Wales. I just feel that Wales will dog it out on Saturday.
Who's going to be brave enough after the game to go around the Welsh players and ask for a whip round for the referee, Jonathan?
yeah. That's or a whip round for Stephen Phillips or something like that. He's out of work now. So I think it's it is what it is. I think France and Ireland are up there. We'll see where Scotland are, after Saturday. But I think those two are up there, and then this is a battle. This is going to be a real battle on Saturday. A real battle.
Certainly is. And the other person in your corner is Nick Kane, who, off the back of he's in form with the predictions, following predicting a France win in Dublin and joining the Turkey Club. Nick, England haven't won in Cardiff for 7 years. You're going to have to stand by your prediction of a Wales win, but do you actually stand by your prediction of a Wales win?
I'd probably I might retrench on that one if I could, but I'm not going to, and because
you're not allowed.
No. I think it'll be very close. What I hope is that Wales do not pick Jack Morgan and Tommy Reffell in the back row together again, because they're just the size now of modern back fives, to have 2 guys. Morgan is under 6 foot, Reffell just about knocking on 6 foot, and they got blasted off the ball and on the ball against Scotland. So I think that would be a mistake. I think that Morgan is should be at open side. Probably bring back Toby Faletau at 8, and keep Christ Chizuna on the blind side. And if they do that, I think that they're capable of mixing it with England. I definitely do. England improved against Italy, no question, but there'll still be a few cracks in the mindset following that loss to Scotland.
Well, I look forward to watching you slip further and further down the leaderboard. Jiffy, do you need to get going?
Yeah, I'll have to go now. I'm afraid.
Yeah, no worries. So Jiffy, obviously, thank you so much for joining us. And you're in Cardiff at the weekend, aren't you? Presuming Hopefully. It goes ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take your boots. That'll be a hell of a day. So looking forward to that. Sometimes when there's off-field issues, the on-field is exactly the saving grace that we all need. So good luck to Wales. Not too much luck, of course. But again, thank you so much for joining us.
No, it's great to see some old faces.
Good to see you, Jonathan.
Nice to see you.
Take care, lads.
Bye, Jiffy.
Go well.
Guys, if it's okay with you, we just 5 more minutes to
wrap up.
preview the other games. So let's look at France versus Scotland then. Very, very briefly. I think that's the other headline game of the weekend. Now, the French, obviously, they first loss in, oh God, I don't even know, but 14, 15 games. Chris, is Scotland smelling blood?
I don't see why they shouldn't be. If I were them, I would feel absolutely up about things. I love the way their backline is playing. I think that Richie Gray's is still one of the great bafflements of modern day rugby to me. That Richie Gray is back where he is after all the time over in France and being sort of semi-available and not really available, and then not really playing very much, and then he was going to go and do a load of coaching and not barely play at all, etc., etc., etc. And his form is revelatory. Absolutely, he's terrific. I mean, the Scots do have, and they love Gilchrist. All the Scots love Gilchrist because he's a complete workhorse. And they've just got a pair of second rows and a lively hooker and a little bit going on up front that they haven't had for years, and that's given them some room to play. And they've got a back division which is in Gregor Townsend's image. I think the image of himself as a rugby guy. I think he's closer to achieving that now than any point in his stewardship of the Scotland side. And I think they're a very dangerous team, which is not to say that I expect them to win in Paris. I think they may come up marginally short. However, I think it's a game, and no one's going to die of shock if they sneak it by 4 or 5 points. I think it's a proper game, that one. Be excellent.
And provided that Scotland hold their own up front, you've got two of the best 3 backlines in the Six Nations going up against one another. Brendan, whose backline's better at the moment, do you think?
I'd say as a back division, Scotland just about shade that one. I think we all thought to me in Dublin the other week that Dupont and Penaud really kept France in that game. Heroic efforts from those two. Yes, without those two, it would have been a much more comprehensive Ireland win. So this is quite an important match for France. They've got to first of all bounce back from, a defeat which they haven't done. They haven't had that experience for a while. And 1 or 2 players have got to step up to the levels of the 2 superstars because these wins just don't happen. It is at home. They haven't played at Stade very often recently. They were sort of on tour, weren't they, in the autumn? I think they had 1 match at Stade, like 2 away matches to start this. So I think it'll be a right old occasion. I think there'll be a good atmosphere. I'm expecting France to respond, but I'm expecting a hell of a match. When we did these predictions a month ago or whatever, I had France pretty firmly in my mind to win this. I think it'll be I don't know what score I did, but I think this will be close. This will be properly close.
I think
what a great Sunday afternoon match.
Bren's right about big French players standing up. There are 2 or 3 of them who are off it at the moment. I mean, everyone talks about Entomac, and I think it is true that he's down a notch from where he's been at his best. But Aldrit's a little bit, it's a whole lot quieter than he was last year. I think Marchand is a whole lot quieter than we've seen him, particularly last time out. And those are players. Aldrit and Marchand are players who will be in a conversation for a World 15.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're as far off their level as they are, or they appear to be at the moment, is interesting. And they could do. I think Galtier could do with them shaping up a little bit.
Galtier's been pretty good at tweaking things when he's needed to, and I think that one of the tweaks that he might need for this game is to put Ntamak on the bench and to bring Jalibert into the starting lineup. They've lost Antonio, which is obviously a huge mountain to lose. But they've got strength in depth at prop. I've been quite disappointed with Ramos at fullback. I thought that Jaminet bought not only has he got, Ramos has got a very good boot on him, but Jaminet's got a howitzer. But also when he comes into the line, he's more dangerous, I think, than Ramos. Ramos is tidy, but I think Jaminet's got just that little bit more flair. So they do need to tune things up at the Stade, and I think that they probably will. But Scotland will be difficult I mean, I've got a margin that now appears too great in France's favour, but I think I'll probably get that one right.
Yeah, we've all got France.
Yeah.
I think Brendan, you and I have got France by 18, which is looking a
No,
little
that's
bit,
not going to happen now. I don't think.
little bit steep. And then Nick and Chris, I think you've got France by 13 and 12. Jiffy's got France by 8. So I think he's probably stood in the best stead for that prediction.
Yeah,
now,
but he didn't do this. He didn't do that stuff in advance of the tournament. I mean,
no, he sent it this morning.
I made my predictions when the Dead Sea Scrolls were being written. I mean, a hell of a lot has happened since I made those predictions. I'd like to go back on them all if I can.
But Chris, it's so much more satisfying if you get them right.
Well,
yeah, but I'm not getting them
true.
right, Brendan, am I? That's the point. I'm not getting them right. Therefore, the satisfaction is a complete red herring.
Chris, your argument is also completely null, given that you made your prediction for Wales to beat Ireland the week of Wales playing Ireland.
Yes,
that was your massive L.
Well, yeah, they didn't play very well that day, Wales, did they? I took that personally, actually. I took the traditional English view of Wales. All of a sudden, you can't trust them.
Now, very, very quickly before we wrap up, Italy, Ireland. We're all unanimous in predicting Ireland. Obviously, Tommy Castello on last week, he actually spoke of the game as one of the two remaining that they're more likely to grab a win in. Hopefully a red card doesn't kill the game off completely like it did last year. Nick, is a fast start the key for the Italians, and not letting Ireland settle, because you feel like if they do click into gear quickly in Rome, they're pretty difficult to overcome?
I think that whether Italy getting a fast start would obviously be good for them if they manage to get on the scoreboard early, but whatever happens, whether they make a quick start or not, it'll be Ireland who finish with the more comprehensive finish.
For time reasons, we're going to wrap up there. Just a reminder for the Predictions League of the current standings. Nick, you might not know this, actually, but we'll go in reverse order. Bringing up the rear, Chris Hewitt, still on 24. Nick, you're on 25. Myself and Brendan are on 30. And the special guests, much to Chris's dismay, are winning on 33. The only differential, obviously, this week is Wales-England, where we are divided. So there will be some rejigging, so stay tuned for that, and obviously feel free to play along as well.
You're looking pretty confident, Ollie. You obviously think
I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling okay about mine.
Chris is looking a bit smug as well.
To be honest, I've erased this whole thing from my mind as I managed to erase the whole of my O-level chemistry course. What did I predict for Wales and England?
I'll tell you. You've got it. I want to say it's 22-20 to England, but that could be completely wrong. No. Oh, I might have to come back. I think I've missed that completely. You've actually predicted a Wales win. 25.
Have you been hacked, Ollie?
I don't know. I don't know how I missed that.
It seems to me that people aren't taking my predictions as seriously as they might.
Chris, you've predicted 25-17 to Wales, so you've got the biggest winning margin for Wales out of all of us.
I mean, I have every faith in a side that's got no players and don't want to play anyway.
Well, I mean, if it is a walkover and the game doesn't get played, I don't know what. Not that I don't know what.
That's 28-0. Is that 28-0? Was it walkover? Bonus point win for England.
Yeah, bonus point, which means I'll be bottom by an even greater margin than I am at the moment. So
yeah. Well,
unusual for me to say this, but let's hope the industrial dispute is solved quickly.
I thought you were looking to tighten your grip on the wooden spoon, Chris.
Well, it will be just about the only thing I've ever won.
Yeah, exactly. Right, we'll see. God, apologies for missing that, Chris. I could have shamed you a lot earlier than I just have for that prediction, but Well, you had your fun last week insulting Nick, and
Indeed.
we'll reconvene in a week's time when you've again erased it from your memory, and I can do my duty of reminding you.
I think, Nick, I called you a complete idiot, and I regret that. I regret. It's a complete misuse of the word "complete."
You're going to be regretting it double time after next week.
Oh dear.
When you will be the consummate idiot.
Well,
I look forward to the verbal disputes if Wales do get a win, because I think Brendan, you and I might have to, well, me particularly, I might have to eat.
There's going to be blood in the water either way, isn't there?
There is, yeah. There is. A rift through the middle of the Rugby Paper podcast. Right, before things blow over, let's wrap up for today, gents. Enjoy the rugby this weekend, and I'll see you all next week.
well done, team. Well played, lads.
Thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Rugby Paper podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on whichever podcast platform you use and recommend the show to your friends. The Rugby Paper is available to buy every Sunday. And to make sure you don't miss it, subscribe through our print, digital and online options at therugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions. That's therugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions to get all our content for as little as 14p per day.